We're back. Oh, that was unexpected. Huh, weird. Weird. How's everyone doing this morning? This fine rainy morning. So rainy. If it doesn't stop before I have to leave for the airport, I'm not going to be able to wear the shoes that I wanted to wear. It's just a mess because I won't wear my good shoes in the rain for obvious reasons. Ugh. It's just a mess. So much rain. So excited finally for the beginning of a live. Yay! And a new book. We're starting a brand new book today. Your cat had a hairball in bed this morning. Yeah, that's the thing about cats. You gotta know what you're getting yourself into if you get a cat. But, you know, Sunny and, you know what, Becca? That's enough from you. It's enough. It's enough, it's enough. It's snowing where you are. Oh, sorry. So sorry, so sorry. Yeah, you can catch up whenever, you know? Okay, I didn't finish it. Okay, understood. No snow here finally. Nice. I don't know why this is falling. It's whatever. It is what it is. Why are you not making me coffee? Thank you. What's everyone doing this morning? Does everyone have their coffee? Everyone got everything you need? Iceberg, right ahead. I was going to say it in a more King George Hamilton way, but I don't want... Yeah. I hear that. I am making the coffee. I'm at the ER. Oh, that sucks. Crocheting in the car. To remind you of my love. No, Andrea, I'm so sorry. I cannot. Come back to Florida. Oh, man. Florida. We finished Turkish Train last night. It's on the video app if you missed it. It was a wild ride. Really, really great. We will not give any spoilers here for anyone who hasn't caught up yet. And once everyone is caught up, we can read the author's note. It's not morning, it is morning. Yeah, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Where I am in California, it is very much morning. It is. It's very much morning. Will you have another when we have another slime release? Hopefully soon. I will have a date for you all soon. I don't have a date yet. Not in Norway. Well, honey, most of us aren't in Norway, sweetheart. So that's the thing about being on an international platform is that you have to understand that people are all over in different places and time is going to be different no matter where you are. And the person who is hosting the platform has every right to say that it's morning where they are. Yeah, that's how it goes. All right, let's see if we got it. Back at our regular cup. Let's see if she got it. Boom, boom, boom. Aww. I mean, it's fine, but not nearly as close to the top as I prefer. No one said you were trying to be mean. Nope. I would have been happier today, but Cleo threw up on my feet. Yikes. What? Not morning in Nora? Well, let's just stop drinking coffee and make some, right? Yeah, no, I'm going to make my coffee. I'm going to read my book. I'm going to do the whole thing. I love my Beetlejuice cup too. The last couple of days got you messed up, right? If you are a child, Andrea, which I assume you are, if you go into another person's live and they say it's morning and it's not morning for you, rather than saying it's not morning in an argumentative manner, a really cool way to reframe that, and this is just a lesson, I'm not being mean, I'm just teaching you something for as you grow, a way to say that is, oh, it's not morning here where I am, rather than saying it's not morning as a definitive, because that isn't true for everyone ever, right? So just saying it's not morning sounds really harsh, but you could say, oh, it's not morning here. you know? And then they'll go, oh, cool, where are you? And then you'll say Norway. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I would love to go to Norway. And you'll be like, cool, where are you? And I'll say California. And you might say, I'd really like to visit California someday. And I'd say, yeah, California's pretty cool, but probably not as cool as Norway. And then maybe we'd be friends. Just an option. Just saying. That's all. It's just an option. You don't have to do it. It's just a suggestion. Morning lessons. I'm just saying, you know. And then we can discuss how cool Norway is and we don't have to worry about arguing. You know what I mean? I have to hop in 5 minutes, sadly, but I'm still in my... Oh, I'm sorry. We had to. It was so good. All right. I'm putting everything down. Hold on. I'm getting the tripod all situated. Okay. So... hello, welcome. I don't normally say this on book club lives because book club lives are usually our small group, but if you guys all want to press the share button only because we're starting John's book today, and I know a lot of people wanted to be here for John's book. Rochelle, Knights of Her Slime, Sasha, I know, Knights of Her Slime. Rochelle is going to try to pop on in just a second, and John will be on a different day. I don't think he wants to be with us for the whole thing, but let's see if we can get some of John's people on here to support him. I used to hate slime until watching your videos. Thank you for your videos. Thank you so much, Jessica. That's a really kind compliment. I really appreciate you saying that. Been kishing up. Wait, did you? Yeah, and so as we're waiting for the Gauntlet people to get in here, we're going to talk really quickly about what happened with the circus train. No spoilers. Nobody post any spoilers because a lot of people haven't finished yet. Okay, if you have not finished the circus train, there are copies of the lives from the circus train on the video app, the one that starts with a Y and finishes with a T. You know, it rhymes with, it's like the slang for television, you know what I mean? Yes, we did finish last night. We had a pajama party and we finished it. And there is an author's notes section in the back that we have not read yet. I'd like us all to be able to do it together. So I'm going to wait until everyone from the core group finishes the book, and then we will do the discussion with the author's note stuff. And then I'll message the author and see if she wants to come hang with us because she did offer to possibly come chill with us and talk about her book, but I don't want to do it until everyone is finished. So we will pick a date together when everyone is finished to contact the author and maybe like get her on in like a normal early evening time to come chat with us so that she doesn't have to come really early in the morning, like maybe like a 5 or 6 p.m. kind of time. You know what I mean? So that is what will happen. I will wait for everyone to tell me, everyone from like the core group of book club people. I know that Tiffany and Liz are not caught up and neither is Shelly. So once y'all have caught up, you let me know and we will continue on with that. Do we know where she's from? I do not know where she's from. It's a great question. I can ask her though. I wonder if it says in like her author bio. Let's see. She's from Toronto, Canada. And this is her first novel. Yeah. Yep. She has some accents in her audible read. She reads it. She does the audible read. Oh my gosh, I have so many favorite books and authors. It would be so hard to narrow it down, to be honest. But today we are going to start The Gauntlet by John G. Doyle, who is a friend. Yeah, it was an amazing first novel. Amazing. I believe so. Let me look. I feel like it depends on the mood, favorite book. Yeah, it definitely does. I jump around a lot in what I read. I'm not like a one genre kind of gal, which, I mean, like whatever. So a lot of people are. Like my sister is pretty much a 1 or 2 genre kind of gal. She does not stray. Like I told her about the circus train and I was like, I want to tell you something that happened, but I don't want to spoil it for you. And she was like, Sasha, I'm not going to read it. I was like, okay, fair. So, you know, I was able to tell her something that happened. So she's a, you know, no shame in being a one genre kind of person. I just happen to not be a one genre kind of gal. All right. So, oh, Renee's here. Hello, Renee. So we're going to start the Gauntlet. I accidentally came in when I was stalking your account for Toy or Noise ASMR pen videos. ASMR pen videos. I don't think I know ASMR pen videos. I don't know what that is. Sounds nice though. I 100% wouldn't have picked that book. Amazing surprise. Yeah. I don't usually stray either, but I'm happy your books. Yeah, so far they've been good. You know what I mean? Like, I know when we all picked the Wicked Stepsisters one at the beginning, we were all kind of like, but then it like really picked up, you know? So sometimes stuff surprises you. Is what it is. It is what it is. So yeah, let's go ahead and unless anyone has any questions, we can go ahead and get started with the Gauntlet. It's not super long. The first one is, I mean, the pages are big, but the typeset is also larger than what we're used to. So it should go fairly quickly. It's 221 pages, which is about half of our last book. So we should, what do we know about this book? We know that it's time travel. I'm not going to give any spoilers. I had already started reading before we decided to have this be a book club book, and so I stopped. It does include time travel, which is, you know, as it is advertised. I can read the blurb on the back if you guys want, so that we can kind of like get in the mood for it, if you will. And it is a trilogy, so we can read more if we choose, you know? All right, so the back says, time travel, the power sought after and craved by everyone and held by none. Until now. Not only is time travel very real to Jericho, he's used it in the ways one would expect, getting rich, predicting world change events, and more importantly, traveling to whenever he chooses, just for kicks. No, Circus Rain isn't narrated by her on Audible. Okay, cool. But just when he thinks his secret is safe, he discovers two other time travelers. One politely wants him to stop while he's ahead. The other wants to end time as we know it and bring the planet to the brink of destruction. So, you know, no pressure. It's a great blurb, actually. No pressure. No pressure. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Gauntlet, Phoenix Cycle, Book 1 by John G. Doyle. This book is dedicated to my wife and that devoted BFF. You all know who you are. I thought you added the no pressure. No, it says no pressure. No pressure. Prologue. I might be dead in a few hours. Please, I don't need your pity, sympathy, or any other means of giving me the old pick-me-up gig, because honestly, I think I'm way past dealing with the death issue. My only regret is that if I do happen to die soon, it won't really be from natural causes, I can assure you. Which bites, really, because I bet a tired old doctor would have just loved to have had a patient that was almost okay with dying. Just saying. So, now that we've all established my demise and hopefully are all right with the fact that you're about to hear a story by someone about to kick off and leave his fans behind to wonder where he's gone, then we can proceed. I've learned many things in my travels, like how you should never buy food from certain vendors in Chinatown, or that when in Rome, make sure you act as American as possible. I've learned how to defend myself physically and psychologically in many ways. I also have a knack for knowing how to dress, no matter where I go. Knowing these aforementioned items is nice and most certainly comes in handy every single day, but there are some things that only I know. These things are, as I so eloquently put, mainly have to do with history. Some of them aren't mentioned in books, though. For instance, history books won't tell you that Vikings think a man in an expensive black business suit is perfectly normal, whereas the crusading English knights find it appalling. The books tell us of the glory of chainmail and how it was the most ingenious idea of the 3rd century, but they also fail to let us know that you had to be able to bench press a Jeep to be able to wear that stuff. Not to mention that it really didn't take off as the must-have armor until around the 6th century, and even then it was really just in the Middle East. Don't ask, because I just know. We all know the 300 Spartans were a rough and tough group of handsome rogues bent on saving their culture with the supreme combat abilities.
Of course we all do, because our precious history books and History Channel. When in reality, there had been almost 1,400 of them. They did miraculously enough get their red loincloths right, but they forgot to mention just how uncomfortable they were. Not to wear, though, just the whole running into primeval combat in my underwear thing. We just speak of their bravery, and for good reason, too. Going into a fight involves spears, swords, and other old school sharp objects. Basically naked? It's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that firsthand. They told us Poe was a drunk crazy man. Wrong. They said Bonaparte didn't take over the whole world, when in fact the only places he didn't control in his reign were the undiscovered regions we now call the Arctic. History as we know it is wrong about everything, and not just about the sword and shield days either. I'm talking about Marilyn Monroe, Don Gillinder, and Joseph Stalin. Real recent type jazz. I can't tell you everything, mainly because I'm not supposed to know myself. Indeed, the knowledge that I have and the way that I acquired it is extremely bad for my health. But I've been quiet for too long. So sit down. No, really, you need to sit down for this. Seriously. My name is Jericho Johnson. I'm 22 years old and I hate Irish wolfhounds with a passion. And I can swing a mean battle axe. This story begins in 1793 AD. I had just bought a new suit, and it was raining, and I had foolishly forgotten my umbrella. It's a pretty great intro, actually. It's a pretty great intro, I have to say. It's very grabbing, and I like the tone of voice. It's a pretty great intro. Chapter 1. Stupid, I muttered to my drenched self. The rain wasn't super hard, but it was terribly cold. Of course, I remembered my camera, but not my flipping umbrella. I glanced down the hill and saw a band of fur-clad men approaching me. There were 12 of them in all. I couldn't resist a quick snapshot of the dozen Viking warriors coming up the hill. Their axes and broadswords glinted from my flash as they came to a stop in front of me. Evening, guys. How are things? I said to them, putting on my best smile and extending my left hand to the one who seemed to be the leader of the pack. I know that right hand was one most commonly employed for greetings among most cultures, but due to the odd glove I had on my right, I decided the left would feel less aggressive. I had been observing their small village for almost 2 days now, from a safe distance, of course, and only taking photos when the urge was too great not to obey. The man looked at my hand and then my black suit. After seeing that the guy was just going to leave me hanging, I put my hand back down. Then he rattled off something in Scandinavian. How could I have forgotten? I guess because I hadn't actually had a verbal exchange with any of them since my arrival almost 3 days ago. I held up my gloved hand and hit a button. What are your theories on global warming and mad cow disease? This was the question I asked most of the time now. I used to amuse myself from time to time by seriously abusing the fact that abusing the fact that the person I was speaking to didn't understand a single word I was saying. I ceased this dangerous practice because of one occasion in the late 1720s when I rattled off a very off-color insult to a man on the streets of Brugge, thinking that he didn't speak English. Why did I think that he wouldn't speak English? You guessed it, history books. My black eye certainly proved them wrong on that one. The Viking before me now looked at his comrades for help, and he seemed a bit unsure of himself. And then he started talking. I listened intently, nodding now and then as if I understood. A soft orange light blinked on one side of the glove for about 30 seconds before turning blue, glowing steadily, and indicating that my glove had obtained enough Scandinavian dialogue to put together their alphabet. Showtime, I muttered to myself, tapping on the icon on the glove screen. Now, what were you saying? The dozen or so Vikings in front of me went all sorts of wide-eyed. How can you speak our language, stranger? The man who had given me enough dialogue for my glove asked. I thought about spinning some insane tale, but thought better of it. Does it all matter that much? I asked instead. It does, was his reply. I sighed. Well, if you simply must know, it has to do with this glove, I said, tapping on the glove with a finger. Or maybe you guys call these things gauntlets? I frowned when I said this and gave my glove a long glance. The more I looked, the more I realized that it was really more of a gauntlet than a glove. So I said, "What did you say your name was?" "Bulwark the Mighty, Bjorn the Berserker's younger brother," the one who'd been doing all the talking said. He didn't seem the least bit puffed up about it either. I know if I had a severely bodacious name like Bulwark the Mighty or Bjorn the Berserker, I'd pretty much wear a t-shirt letting everyone know about it. "Well then, Bulwark, you guys have nothing to fear of me. I'm simply a man on a quest for knowledge, nothing more," I said, smiling reassuringly at him. "I just want to know about your people, your likes, dislikes, if you guys really have braided beards." I glanced over at a lot of the men in front of me just to make sure one of them was sporting one of those sweet beards that I'd always gave my Dungeons and Dragons characters. None of them were. Of course, what I was telling them was true depending on how you looked at it. "Bjorn is not welcoming to strangers," Bulwark said almost awkwardly. Would you mind letting me meet Bjorn?" I asked. This was a shot in the dark. The odds of these people letting some weirdo stranger have an audience with their chieftain wasn't looking too good. But one of the things that I've learned in my travels was that the worst thing you could get was being told no. Or they could decapitate me. Bulwark pondered on this. "Do you have any weapons, traveler?" he asked, this cautious enough. Almost as if he were afraid I was a wizard and could be offended or something. His eyes dropped to my gloved hand, not that I blamed him. The fingers on it were thick at the base and ended in some devilishly sharp points. I chose my next words carefully. "No axes or swords to speak of, Bulwark," I said, extending my hands, palm upward to allow them all a good look. "This glove is just for traveling," I said, and one of the Vikings on my right narrowed his eyes. Seeing that he was toting a wicked cool hammer, I added, "And no hammers." Seemingly satisfied that I wasn't packing, Bulwark simply nodded and turned to head back down the hill towards the village. I was relieved that swords and shields were the standard weapon of the time, so they didn't have cause to give me a thorough once-over, because, as it happens, I was indeed packing. It was all about the gauntlet. Apart from having the capability of sailing me through time and space and looking totally awesome whilst doing it, it dueled as my weapon, defense, against unfriendly strangers. I didn't know all the ins and outs about it, but I had gotten the hang of the important bits. I'd had it for a little over a year at the time, but the fact that it was extremely futuristic technology and that I just skimmed through the digital manual on the glove like a lame birthday card from my Aunt Greta were both key factors in why I wasn't completely familiar with all of the glove's capabilities. Sure, I'd tested out all the buttons in a secure location, which, incidentally, was the Arabian Desert in 1894, where I was sure no one would get hurt. After messing around with it for a few hours, I had deduced that if you took away the bells and whistles from the glove, you know, that thing called time travel, it was basically a future hotshot, except the electricity shot out in an invisible bolt that went around 30 feet and could probably knock someone at least as far if I had to use it on anyone. If I had something my nerd mind wasn't quite ready for, it also had something my nerd mind wasn't quite ready for. A grappling hook. Back then I didn't realize how useful one of those could be, but I sure do now. There was a screen on the top of the wrist part that showed me basically everything a time traveler should know, like the date at the top of the left-hand corner, the temperature at the top of the right-hand corner, and it was a little over 20 degrees when I was with the Vikings. The rest of the screen was mostly taken up by important little tidbits such as my heart rate, oxygen level, and blood pressure. One button at the top center was labeled Weapons/Defense, and the other button to the right was the one that said New Date. And that's where I put in the date of the next place I fancied visiting. Example, if I put in Paris, France, 1645 and hit enter, I would be there in less than 15 seconds. I know, wicked, right? When we reached the village, the rest of its inhabitants stared at me wide-eyed. I didn't get the chance to find out why, because their chief met me at the front door. "What is it you want?" he bellowed, brandishing a bodacious, double-bladed axe that looked like it weighed more than I did. "Speak, outsider!" In my year of traveling, I had encountered more people like Bjorn the Berserker than I could count. Afraid of the unknown, handling them was not always easy, and I could see already that the exchange with Bjorn was sizing up to be a nasty one if I didn't play my cards right. "Chief Bjorn, I trust?" I said, noticing to my delight that his blood-red beard was braided into two neat rows that reached his stomach. My name is Jericho Johnson, I said, dipping into a small bow. I've come from a very long way to see the might of your dynasty and to see that if all I've heard of you and your valiant warriors was true. This was true. I had come there to see if the Vikings were all they were cracked up to be and to check out the braided beard situation, but they didn't need to know that. Bjorn narrowed his eyes at me, flicking them down to my glove. And what's this that you have? Time to turn up that classic Jericho charm. Why, have you not heard of the devastatingly beautiful dramas of Bjorn the Berserker and his band of Vikings? I asked, looking very aghast that he hadn't. Bjorn closed the gap between us. After he stopped right in front of me and stared at me for an uncomfortably long time, he finally smiled and slapped me on the shoulder. Well then, Jericho Johnson, you shall dine with us tonight in my great hall and tell us all these tales about myself, he said, laughing. After I received a few more slaps on the back, I began realizing why they all wore armor. These guys could kill you with kindness. Bjorn then insisted on having a guide show me around his lands while we waited for the feast to be prepared. I was told that the feast would be ready in an hour and that the great horn would be blown when it was time. Upon my request, I was granted some authentic Viking garb, complete with a pointed helmet and 5 wolves' worth of fur. Peter would have had a major field day with these dudes. I was most excited to discover my guide to be a gorgeous warrior woman with white blonde hair and a mean-looking sword slung over her back. Some of my excitement was due to the fact that history had only had a few speculations about Viking women being warriors, but let me be completely honest and say that most of it was because she was absolutely smoking hot. You're the traveler? She asked me, sounding as if she'd rather have her right arm slowly sawed off and then instead of having to show me the sights. Name's Jericho, I said, and you are Piper. Where? I said, looking around for some 8th century instrument player. No, fool, my name is Piper. Wow, a Viking warrior chick named Piper? It was probably a good thing she didn't have a name like Arwen or Gwendolyn, because I'm pretty sure my inner nerd would have taken over and I would have tried to kiss her or something. We started our journey at the village square where she showed me the fish market and then the tanner and the blacksmith. I was working my digital camera overtime and it had started drawing her attention. Piper had been silent the whole time that I was snapping photos like a wild man, but I could feel her eyes on me. And what in the name of Odin is that? She asked, peering at it curiously. This is Thelma, I said, handing her my camera. She examined it curiously. But what does it do? This was always fun. Here, I said, taking it back. I could show you faster than I could explain it. I stepped back from her and held it up so I could see the pretty Norse girl on the camera screen. Say cheese. She blinked at me for a few seconds before she finally caught on that I didn't really want her to say cheese. Cheese? She said before the flash went off, and she almost shouted, Thor's beard! Before instantly looking around to make sure that none of the older folk had heard her blasphemous comment against the thunder god. Teenagers, I guess. I guess they weren't really all that different over thousands of years ago after all. Sorry, I probably should have warned you about the flash, I said, turning the camera around to the shaking girl so that she could see herself on the screen. She stared open-mouthed at the photo with unbelieving eyes. How does this work? Yeah, no, I know. Jericho definitely has a lot of John's, colloquialisms to him, which makes it really kind of easy to read it. It's very fun. It's very fun. It's an easy read for sure, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a good way. I know it's a lot to take in, but there isn't a supercomputer in the world that can't do what your eyes can do in a few fractions of a second. Come on, Pipe, smile. Whatever you're doing when I push the button on top, you'll be doing it on the little screen here. She smiled big, showing her white teeth, and I forgot to take a photo because I gawked at her like an idiot. In any movie about the old school sword and shield days, they always gave the female protagonist or antagonist, for that matter, perfectly white teeth, even though we all know that they had zero help with keeping their teeth clean. Right? Why are you looking at me that way? Piper asked, breaking my concentration on a serious breakthrough. I blinked and shook my head a little. Sorry, Pipe. You have really nice teeth, I said, sinking further into the mirror of my own idiocracy. Thank you, she said, nodding politely. You have nice teeth, too. Thanks, sweetheart. The Colgate must be working. Her eyes widened and her mouth fell open. You've been to the Colgate? She asked this with a mixture of wonder and fear. I frowned. The what? The Colgate, she said, dropping her voice to a whisper and leaning towards me. She smelled kind of like cinnamon. Just thought you should know that. It's located at the north of here. The entrance is hidden, but it's said to be the gateway to the underworld. Does John know we started his book today? He does. Yes, John does know we started today. Yeah, we were talking about it last night. Oh, right, yeah, that Colgate, the entrance to Hell's front porch, so to speak. I thought about telling her that I'd been to Helheim and back just to see the kind of street cred that sort of venture gave a guy in the 1720s, but I thought better of it. Actually, Piper, where I come from, Colgate is the name of something that cleans our teeth. It took me a good 10 minutes to convince her that no, I had never been to Helheim, that I was really telling the truth about the toothpaste. Just when I had finished up my lecture on Colgate, we heard the great horn blow, indicating that it was chow time. Oh well, I suppose I could finish sightseeing the next day. I still had a while before my college students back in Chicago had to turn their midterm papers in, but none of that mattered considering that I could just zip back to exactly when I left. Because, time travel. But another thing that I've learned in my travels is that making plans and time travel mix about as good as oil and water. Of course, back then I had absolutely no idea that there was a completely insane psychopath bent on world domination that also wanted me dead so that he could have the gauntlet. Nope, I didn't find out that crazy revelation for another 2 whole days. In actual time, though, because I stayed with the Vikings for a while before heading home. So cut me a break, whoever you are, because, just like I said, how the Helheim was I supposed to know? This is very cute. It's very cute. I had originally been reading it in the ebook version, and I do not do as well reading ebooks, so this is much better for me. Oh, chapter 2 is only 2 pages. Yeah, it is a super fun book. All right, chapter 2. So can anyone tell me where Emperor Nero went wrong? I asked the 70 students seated in the auditorium. Silence. Not that I blamed anyone. Defending Nero about, well, anything wasn't easy. And in case you've forgotten already, there aren't many 22-year-old college professors. Almost half of my class was made up of people around 20 to 22, the rest being kids who did well enough in high school to make it into my classroom before their 19th birthday. I know, God bless America, right? Some kids actually did graduate. There was also the occasional 30 to 40-something men and women deciding to better their education later in life. And if I had to choose between these few classes of students and pick the hardest to teach, I would have to go with the older folk, namely because most of them aren't keen about the idea of their professor being almost 20 years younger than them. Will you be reading in Vegas? Yes, every day except for Saturday. I leaned back in my desk chair, placing my laced fingers on top of my head, and tried not to sigh. Look, guys, we all know about Nero being this horrible emperor, but can anyone in this room please tell me at least one good thing that he did? I pointed my finger at the first hand that went up. Mona, if you please, I said to the bright-eyed brunette sitting in the front row. Well, if he would have been proven guilty of setting Rome on fire, then he would have also been responsible for getting more land available to the southern farmers and increasing Rome's reach to the grain industry, Mona said, adjusting her glasses. I didn't think that she would have thought of that. That is, oddly enough, the most satisfying answer I've received all day, so thank you, Mona. Of course, being a history teacher with the ability to time travel, Nero had been one of the first historical figures that I had tracked down. I had already proven that he was, in fact, accountable for the Great Fire. Mona stating Nero's one good accomplishment had been dead on. Had the fire not happened, the fall of Rome would have happened almost 200 years earlier than it did, by my calculation. Oh, and incidentally, Roman historian Edward Gibbon was right. It did happen in AD 476, just not on September 4th. It was sometime in late June. Also, I never want to meet Nero, ever again. I talked a few more minutes about how Rome was, even with all its wanton and bloodthirsty ways, one of the greatest civilizations to date. And when the bell rang, everyone started standing. I reminded them about an essay that was due late next week, and I bid them a warm journey home. Speaking of home, that's where I couldn't wait to be. Chapter 3 is pretty short. I think we could do it. I think we could do chapter 3. Chapter 3. I dropped my bags, coats, and briefcase on the foyer floor. This was my ritual time, and I stepped into my condo. "Hi, honey, I'm home," I called cheerfully. The journey home had been uneventful. I'd stopped by a coffee shop close to my house to do some boring paperwork, but I had decided to finish up later after I got my real work done concerning time travel. Yvonne Mitchell's butler extraordinaire appeared on the scene. A butler was one of the first things that I added to my 12,000 square foot condo. As I like to look at it, it was more of a mansion than a condo, complete with a spiral staircase, tennis court, and inside pool. "Ah, Master Johnson, I trust you had a pleasant day," he said, stooping to retrieve my coat. "Let Louise get that, Mitch," I said. "I need you in the basement, stat." "I have given Miss Louise the night off," Yvonne said, dropping my coat over his arm, straightening. "She had a hard cough and needed some time to recuperate, sir." I nodded and scooped up to pick the backpack and briefcase that I'd just thrown down. Billionaires having to pick up their own luggage off the vestibule floor. I shook my head. "What's the world coming to, Mitch?" "I'm sure I do not know, sir," he said. "Come on, Mitch, lighten up. We've got a lot of planning still left to do tonight." "Of course, sir," Yvonne said. "I took the liberty of having Owen pick up your favorite tacos from downtown LA, and they're en route. The estimated time of your arrival of your private jet is exactly 38 minutes. "Awesome, Mitch. You're the best butler with a British accent ever," I said, patting him on the shoulder. "Sushi tacos. No one did it better than downtown LA. We deposited my coats and bags in the enormous closet to the left of the front door and headed to the enormous living room. Although, when you own a house this huge, the area that's generally called the living room is the boasting room. The best view, fireplace, expensive furniture, water fountain with naked angels adorning it, you know, the drill. The walls were also laden with weapons from almost every age imaginable. Come to think of it, I never even sat in the boasting room, but sitting would have to wait. We crossed the fancy room to the door that led to the elevator. The door opened a short hallway that eventually ended at the elevator and went down 5 stories into the basement/lab. I pushed the level 5 button and stepped inside. "Come down and get my tacos when they're here, please. Of course, Master Johnson." And then the doors closed. Yvonne was a retired captain of the military that had gone Secret Service, and then that had gone hitman, and then finally gone butler. But aside from having such an amazing life as that, Yvonne Mitchell's was one specific characteristic that made him invaluable and irreplaceable in my eyes: an unreasonable love of history. The weekly combat/weapons training that had begun with his arrival was so fun. It was kind of cool to have your teacher refer to you as master, too. He was also one of 2 people from 2012 who knew about my knack for traveling back in time. Tonight was extremely special for Yvonne, though. He didn't know it yet, but I had finally decided to let him join me again on my upcoming voyage. He'd come with me only once before when I'd gone to see Nero, and I've got to be quite honest, that little venture didn't end well. The elevator dinged and the door opened to a 10-foot hall. The floor, walls, and ceiling were all made from chrome steel. At the end of the short hall was yet another door that required my hand impression, a retinal scan, and voice recognition for access. After slapping my hand on the scanner, widening my right eye and saying my name, a 1-foot-thick steel door opened slowly from the ground up. I walked in and clapped my hands twice. The lab was where I spent most of my time in the house. Upon my clapping, the enormous room was lit up with white lights. "Welcome, Jericho Johnson," a computered female voice announced when I entered. As much as I'd like to say I had my artificial intelligence made so that I could talk to it and would do all my paperwork for me, that would be a lie. I had the female greeting installed with the lab because, why not? Inlaid with the walls were some touch screens that reached the floor. Right now, each one of the 6-foot-tall by 10-foot-wide screens were all filled to the brim with my Rome information. The first had longitudes and latitudes and some of the most accurate maps I could find of AD 97 Rome. The second, names of famous structures, places, peoples, and particular dates. The tops of most of the tables in the room were the same touchscreen monitors, just laying down. These were easy to access and so were employed in basically all my studies. A private lab had always been a dream of mine, but since now I was a celebrity, I realized that normal things normal people could get away with couldn't apply if I wanted to keep my extracurricular activities under wraps and away from the public eye. Like being able to just plug into the same internet everyone else was using. No, that wasn't a good idea, because WikiLeaks had been wanting to debunk me from the start. So I did what every billionaire does when they need some parts of their search history covered beneath the clandestine. I bought a satellite. Several, actually, to maintain my link continuously when one of my expensive hunks of space metal decided to do what it was designed to do and orbit away from me. The tables that weren't boasting touchscreen tops were located at the back, and they were all overflowing with armor and weapons from at least 12 different eras. I approached these and selected my latest addition, the double-bladed axe that Bjorn the Berserker had his best blacksmith craft for me before my departure yesterday. I'd swung it around for a few minutes when I heard Yvonne's voice buzz over the speaker. "Your sushi tacos, sir." "Admit guest," I said, and the steel doors slid open. Yvonne in with a tray held high. He brought it over to the table with a 3-dimensional map of the entire city of Rome. "Oh, bye. See you later, Addie." Glowing green from the monitor, and set it right on the Colosseum. "Your tacos, sir." "To work then," I said, diving onto the platter of sushi tacos and relishing the first bite. After a few hours of sifting through all the information we had about AD 97, me crunching merrily away on my tacos, Yvonne did most of the work. My butler proposed the brilliant idea of going back to AD 98 instead. Cornelius Tacticus, Roman historian and senator, finished 2 whole books that year, Master Johnson, and Emperor Nerva died and was succeeded by Trajan. "Think I could get my hands on those books?" I asked, licking my fingers after I swallowed the last of my tacos. "Possibly. And celebration for a new emperor would not be one to miss, sir," he said, swiping his hand over the screen to scroll through a list of events. "Trajan also went on to Germania the same year and defeated the Bucetri, returning as a hero. What a busy little emperor. Yet another glorious celebration." I had mapped out my landing spot in the city, choosing some grassy flats on the outskirts. What? Did you think that I would blindly appear somewhere in the great city of Rome? No, not a good idea. My glove could just land me anywhere, but would land me in exact places when the correct longitudes and latitudes were punched in. For my moment, this is like what if Tony Stark invented time travel? Yeah, maybe. I've never seen it. We need to grab the book so we can zap back to Chicago if we have... We need to grab the books last so that we can zap back to Chicago if we have to steal them. I said this purposefully and watched Yvonne's reaction. He had his back to me, but he turned his head slightly. "Master Johnson, did you say we?" I smiled and walked to his table. "I did indeed, Mitch." I slapped him gently on the shoulder. "I need a hand on this one, and who knows, maybe we'll get to use all that combat training you've been pouring into my head." He nodded simply, as if I had just asked him to ride with me across town instead of time and space. And then he added, "I hope we do not have to use any of the combat training whatsoever." "Master Johnson, Rome is not the best place to have a good knowledge of such things, and after Nero..." Yeah, I remember Nero." I walked back to the bulletproof glass and held my white metallic glove spinning on a turnstile like a show car. "Well then," I said, taking the glove out and slipping it on my right hand, wincing a little at the tiny jolt of electricity that hummed through the veins on my wrist. Within a few seconds, my heart rate and temperature appeared on the screen. "We'll just have to nip that in the bud now, won't we?" I said, pointing a ridiculously sharp finger at the Colosseum. There you go. We're going to Rome, friends. We'll go to Rome tomorrow. We'll go to Rome tomorrow. My goodness. Woo! It's pretty cute. It's cute. It's a good book. I like it so far too. I like the boys. Yeah, I'll pack a bag too. All right. I got a lot to get done before I have to go to the airport. I have a lot of work to do today, so I'm going to head off, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.